way to start.
Yeah, it's a good way to start on Monday morning.
Talking to Brian Lane one day about forming a band. I said to him, I'd like to form a band. And he said, well, you know, I've got Steve Howe in the same position.
Brian called me up and said, you know, I've just spoke to Steve Hackett. He's not doing much. Do you fancy meeting him and just seeing if there's anything going on?
What if you put two guitarists together? And he said straight away, yeah, it'd be great. It'd be like sticking Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck together. Straight away. He was in there with that line, and it seems to have stuck.
So for 2 weeks, we just sort of met and plonked around and talked about principles, really, much more than anything else.
It might work, you know, like two Steves, two people whose surname begin with H, both motivated by greed.
The key to it was writing, and if we could write, we felt that if we could write together, then surely, being guitarists, we could hold a whole group together.
The great thing about them was that I thought, well, maybe it's going to be just the two Steves, you know, supported by a few other guys. But they had a great idea of, you know, writing songs, and they just sounded great. So I said, right, you know, as soon as I finish the Asia album, I'll be working with them.
The idea of getting a keyboard player to produce them seemed like my logic, and that seems to work as well, because what Jeff is doing is innovating new technology into the guitar, you know, guitar played through synclavier to make the guitar sound like keyboards. It's one of the features on this particular album.
And yes, we were all equal, you know, we all went up together, we all sort of developed together, and Asia was a sort of group where we'd all already developed when we'd got together, and in a way, GTR is really a partnership between me and Steve.
I knew Jonathan because he'd auditioned already with me. He wanted to play with me, and I said to him, well, you know, hold on, because I may have something for you which you don't expect.
So tell us, Jonathan, what do you really perceive as your role in this group? Playing drums? I played the other semi, you might call big things, Marillion being one. A group back home called The Fools, but it's always just filling in, freelancing. This was the first group I've ever joined.
As soon as he sat down on the kit, it was like, boof, between the eyes.
Then Jonathan actually, you know, suggested Phil Spalding. So we tried him out after another bass player had almost, you know, just about made the grade. And then Phil came in, it was a bit like, you know.
So why did you decide to switch to bass?
Because I think at the time I was the smallest one. There were 3 guitar players and I was the smallest, so I was voted bass player.
I said, you know, between you and me, everyone's pretty impressed with your playing. You know, after 10 minutes, we're all going, this guy can cut it.
Before joining this group, I played a couple of years with Mike Oldfield, which was an invaluable experience.
We liked his personality and his approach.
I saw this one. What's the song, innit? Hello!
The thing that impressed me specifically when I saw the band was Max's singing, because it's hard to find original singers these days. It's hard to find a guy who gets up there, holds a microphone and basically delivers. Max has got a fantastic voice. He, in many ways, is the secret weapon that the group have, because it's the hardest thing to find a great singer in a band.
I've often pinched myself some days, and I'm actually involved with this band, but no, I don't think it's a dream.
I think Steve Howe he's much more of a lead player, you know. He's like, he'll tear into a lead part all the time.
What would happen with no keyboards? You know, having two guitars is obviously a good buffer so that you know, didn't become a whole gap in one's music. It was time to take that wall away and see what would happen if it wasn't there.
On some of the tracks, Steve Howe's the guy who's thinking like a keyboard player and thinking in terms of rhythm parts, and Steve Hackett's blowing around all over the place, you know.
All guitarists really want to do is like turn up and make a lot of noise, don't they? They all want to be the Kinks, really. Electric guitar is like at its best when it's slightly out of control, really. It's that sort of mad beast.
But the two seem to complement themselves very, very well.
I learned to do something that a lot of guys do these days with a plectrum, but for some reason I did it because I grew my nails, and so it was like being able to do things a bit faster, which was like hammering on and off, like.
You know, they've got the same qualities and very different qualities as well. For instance, the acoustic guitar playing. I mean, Steve Hackett much more prefers to play a nylon guitar. And Steve Howe prefers to play a steel acoustic guitar.
You better have a lot of films, there'll be a lot of outtakes.
Not the documentary, we want to get back to work.
I think the landlord across the road is a little bit richer than he was an hour ago.
I'll tell you what, Al, I've just had scampi and chips for £1 and 5
£1 and 5 pence.
And it was loads
Lovely.
of jockey's whips.
This is an advert.
Right, and scampi.
Would you work with these guys?
Can you believe it would have charged you £8 in that canteen? They tell you now, don't eat at the townhouse canteen. You get ripped off. They all think we're millionaires.
Yeah.
There's only one millionaire here.
I wish I was.
After a while you get cabin fever, I think. It's almost like being a permanent member of staff, really. After a while it's like, hello George, hello, you know, the doorman, he must work here all the time. You know, bands come and go. Queen have made 6 albums since we've been here. That's not true.
We've explored certain things because of having the synclavier and the Fairlight and MIDI keyboards. We've been able to, we think, make a connection nobody else has done, which is play a guitar, fire the synclavier and a whole bank of MIDI keyboards, which is quite a spectacular sound.
I sort of brought with me a lot of technical knowledge in terms of what a lot of modern instruments do in terms of programming and sequencing and all that kind of thing, which they were very, very interested in and still are, you know, in terms of how do you make a guitar do unbelievable things like play a piano chord or something, you know.
One of the tracks, you know, is the first time I actually play a piano. You know, I'm playing the guitar, going through the emulator too, and out comes a piano. And that for me is fantastic. It's a great experience. I'm not trying to pretend, you know, I'm Chopin, but what I am doing is putting guitar thinking into the keyboard sound.
I've never been in a band that's worked harder on materials, so, you know, from that point of view, it's the close detail thing, really. I haven't been able to get away with anything so far, but I intend to.
There's a lot of mistakes you can make making a record, you know, folks. If you put the lead guitar on early and then the singers come in, you know, they go, hang on a second, and you've played over everything. And likewise, if you give the singer total free rein, he'll sing everywhere you were going to play lead guitar. So that's why the guitarists have been watching the progress of the album and making sure that A, singer does not sing on a guitar spot, and likewise, we've not blotted out his area.
This is the basic orchestration on these 2 tracks. Guitar answer. That's the basic program on those tracks.
There's an instrumental part to When the Heart, which goes, the riff is something like, and it was on the guitar synth. This was something that Steve first played me when we got together. But then there was the chorus, which I had this idea a while ago, which went...
Jekyll and Hyde is a sort of a reasonably bizarre song that we've done that actually the lyric came about because we were sitting looking at some lyrics we'd written, and I just said to Steve, you know, wow, this really looks like sort of, you know, pointing at one bit Dr. Jekyll and another bit Mr. Hyde.
If anything was made for stadiums, this particular thing was, you know, it's like da, 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 boom, big sort of chords and things, and but the rest of it's quite dancey in a way.
If Steve hadn't said, wow, isn't that a good idea for a song, you know, then we wouldn't have that idea.
My favourite song is You Can Still Get Through. That's got my power.
One piece called Sketching in the Sun, which is a solo 12-string guitar solo, really. I mean, you know, alone, one-man guitar sort of style. Steve's done something quite different, haven't you? You've got
That's right, yeah,
lads
I did
together.
something which is like sort of a whammy bar extravaganza.
The one I feel really strongly about, I think, is a track called The Hunter.
It was called something really dreadful to start with, Bone Shaker or something. And then I walked in and said, you know, I've got a new idea for it. You know, I've got a couple of verses, let's have a look. And everybody sort of crawled around on the floor for a while. And when we got up, we had imagining.
Eventually it became a song, and we put chords to it, so we thought at the end it'll be nice if it goes...
Favourite bit on the whole album coming up.
Well, initially we're going to play theatres. The idea is not to play the big arenas.
I think all musicians like to get back to roots of yourself, and it's a good opportunity to do this, to actually get back to playing where you've got the people at your feet.
We have talked about doing very stylish numbers from the past, yes. You know, if I say like Siberian Couture, not necessarily Siberian Couture, but the kind of number that's got a hell of a lot of impact and really says, you know, this is a period piece, if you like, a classic period piece. I hope we're going to do that sort of thing.
When the ticket sales are announced, I'm sure there's Steve Howe fans who specifically want tickets on the left-hand side of the auditorium, and Steve Hackett fans will probably want the right-hand side of the auditorium. Me, I want to sit in the middle because I like Steve Howe and Steve Hackett, and I also quite fancy the other three in the musical, not the biblical sensicles.
They may think they're in control, but wait till we get on stage, they won't be. We'll be taking over then.
See, the reason why the band's called GTR, there's only 3 letters in the name. All my bands always have short names because the letters are that much bigger on posters. You know, the Amazing Thunderbirds, you can't have it very big unless you've got a large poster. But yes, Aisha GTR, you've got huge letters, you know. We service even the blind and short-sighted.
It's kind of nice that after all the rest, suddenly the props fall away and you're left with just the playing.
Chance to get